Back in, well, yeah, in my early college days and sort of the later part of my high school days, I had a, let's just say, fondness for watching documentaries. This is back before I realized documentaries are made by people and therefore prone to, well, bias, bullshittery, and spraying a narrative, let's just say. For instance, of this, look at Clash of the Gods. It was a series I watched back in. Actually, this is in my back when I attended the freshman academy because where I went to high school, the freshmen were so out of control when dealing with high schools that they segregated them to what had been a school for kids, and they forced them to go there and attend some classes at the high school. But anyway, while I was there was this program I started watching called Clash of the Gods. It dealt with mythology, but to get back into my point of like the bias you would sometimes and narrative that would sometimes be pushed by documentaries. They had an episode about Tolkien's Middle Earth, which was one of the things that eventually led to me giving the lore of Middle Earth and Tolkien's work a chance eventually in college. But one of the things they proposed was when they were talking about the orcs, they talked about how it has been interpreted that basically the orcs are an allegory for capitalists, which is bullshit because, well, for the most part, Tolkien was quoted once as saying, "I hate allegory, I despise it." Though he did have a work that did employ allegory, and he was friends with C.S. Lewis, who his work did employ allegory, so take that what you will. But despite this, documentaries are a good way of getting into stuff, how they're a good way of getting inspired to do work for me, or at least that's what it is with me. And one thing I enjoyed in this time in high school was horror documentaries because I loved learning about these directors, although the subject of this video is not a horror director. But these guys were friends, a lot of them were. And the subject of this one, he was friends with a lot of directors you are probably familiar with because they directed movies you saw growing up. John fucking Milius. He was friends with George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Oliver Stone, Francis Ford Coppola, like a lot of the big name directors you probably have heard about in film school, because I didn't go to film school. I wish I had, because well, actually, no, I'm glad I didn't, because one of my relatives went to film school and he ended up dying from an overdose as a result. But, yeah, a lot of these guys you would hear about either in documentaries or the films you watched growing up. John Milius was friends with, hell, he was considered bigger than them in film school because out of all of them, it was speculated he would do the best, and he might have if the studios hadn't fucked with him and critics had not fucked with him the way they did. And there's a documentary about this guy just called Milius, which opens with a quote by Teddy Roosevelt, of all people, which is funny because one of John Milius' favorite people from history was Teddy fucking Roosevelt, and as someone who grew up loving Teddy Roosevelt, I can appreciate the sentiment. Which it opens with something to the effect of, "The critic is not who counts, it's the man in the arena, the person who actually does shit." And that's me paraphrasing, but John Milius in this documentary about him is like, this guy, a lot of good films throughout the decades he did get work in Hollywood and in films in general, they stood out. If you don't believe me, look at Dirty Harry. Now, his name is not credited with Dirty Harry. Like, he didn't write the script, he reworked it after it was made, because the original idea for Dirty Harry was it was going to end with a Marine sniper killing Scorpio. John Milius rewrote where Harry killed him, and a lot of good lines in the film come from John Milius' writing because he had a thing for dialogue. Like, one of the things that John Milius excelled at was fucking dialogue. He was really good at it. That's something his friends noticed as well. And like one example of this would be Judge Beam or something Beam. Like, George Lucas said that had some of the best dialogue he had ever seen in a script. And it wasn't filmed the way Milius wanted. Like, he wanted to direct it because he thought the director and the guy they had starring as Beam was okay, but he didn't think they were right for the film. But anyway, he did Dirty Harry. He wrote Magnum Force, which, funny enough, Magnum Force was kind of made as a response to the criticism by douchebag hacks like Roger Ebert and Pauline Kael, who, if you look at critics today and think that they only now are scumbags, yeah, no, they've always been scum, and they were always unobjective. It's just back in the day they pretended to be like the only thing separating Red Letter Media from Siskel and Ebert is Siskel and Ebert at least pretended to have objectivity. I'm pretty sure Red Letter Media, they never entertained the idea of it. But anyway, Milius did that. He wrote the second the Magnum Force film. He wrote the script for that. He wrote, what's another good one? Conan the Barbarian, that first one. He wrote that. And he was ahead of the curve in terms of what entertainment would go. Like, if you've ever looked at all the sex stuff and crap that we have now, John Milius was one to do that in the 80s. The films that came after with Conan, I don't think he was involved in. But he is somewhat credited with bringing Arnold Schwarzenegger on the map, because when they were pitching the film for Conan, they were the guy who was paying for it was like, who do you want to act in? Milius was like, Arnold Schwarzenegger. The guy's like, I am not doing a film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, because the guy was a little bitch, little producer, as they all are, apparently. And then, okay, who do you want to do it? And I forget the guy's name. He was like this big, Hasselhoff, I think was the guy. Or Hoffman. And the other guys look at each other like, are you fucking crazy? Okay, fine, Schwarzenegger, whatever. So, yeah, Milius has had an impact in culture to a degree. It's just, and if you're wondering why you've never heard of this guy, have you ever heard of a movie called Red Dawn? Not the Chris Hemsworth one, but the original one. Yeah, when that came out back in the day, this was in a time when leftists were entertaining the idea of trying to have peaceful relations with the Soviet Union, despite the fact they want to turn America into a sheet of glass. Like, yeah, and if I didn't make it apparent before in the past, yeah, no, fuck communism. Fuck commies. You do not negotiate with commies, because even when you're at peace with them, they're still trying to infect you like an STD from across the ocean. Anyway, this film came out, and before this, Milius had been smeared and slandered by critics like Pauline Kael and Ebert as a fascist. And not just him, but this was later used against him after Red Dawn came out, because they were like, it's a right-wing power fantasy. I'm like, so the fuck what? You have left-wing films that are a fantasy. You have neurotic films about neurotic losers. Like, The Joker has precursors, let's just say, in the 70s. And so what? Right-wingers can't have power fantasies, but you liberal dipshits can? Yeah, fuck you. And after this, all of his comments before this were used against him, because John Milius, he did not hide his politics. And if you're thinking he's a right winger, no, motherfucker, no, this guy was not right wing. He's too right wing for the right wingers. Like, this man, he looks at the right wing and go, you guys are pussies, which it's kind of true. Like, I look at John McCain when he was alive, and General Snowflake, or Senator Snowflake, and go, you guys are pansies. You guys aren't Americans. Goldwater was a Republican. These guys are they're pretenders to the throne of Republicans. So yeah, like, and he had left-wingers defend him. Like, John Milius had friends on the left who defended him, like George Lucas and Oliver Stone, and Oliver Stone did not agree with him. He once said in the documentary, John has evolved politically over time. Like, so the fuck what? Stone, neither of you. Like, you have been consistently a liberal douche since you came back from NAM. Which, ironically enough, Milius wanted to participate in NAM too, but he was denied membership, apparently, because of his asthma. But anyway, this film came out. The critics' accusations of fascism against him were used against him later on, because, like, a lot of talking dipshits in the media who fancy themselves as cultural mavens, yeah, they attacked the film, they attacked Milius, and more or less he started getting work less and less, which I find kind of fucking ironic. They call him a fascist, but they were doing a fascist thing, because fascists love to exercise control over the arts. They don't like other opinions being in movies. And I will stand by that statement. Like, come at me in the comments and say I'm wrong. Fuck you. Fascists and commies are not that far apart. Both do the same thing. The difference is one is given a pass these days. But yeah, Milius did this. He made a lot of good movies. Some of them are even like obscure, like The Wind and the Lion, which is a movie that has, I shit you not, Sean Connery plays an Arab man. No joke, I'm not bullshitting you. He did that. The film also had a version of Teddy Roosevelt in it, who fights him. I'm also not bullshitting you. There's a film with Sean Connery fighting a film version of Teddy Roosevelt, and it's fucking awesome. I watched it not that last year. It was fucking awesome. I stand by that. You shit on me all you want. It was an awesome fucking film. Blow me. To all the leftists who hate it. And what was funny was Harrison Ford kind of said this is coming out at the same time they were doing Star Wars. It wasn't that different. Like, it's like coming of age shit. And it's just a funny film, a funny documentary to watch on the grounds of John Milius was kind of a shit star. Like he loved to yank a chain or two, and he did lots of weird films. Like he had one film that was just about surfing. No shit, exclusively surfing. Hell, this is the guy who wrote Apocalypse Now. Yes, I'm not kidding. Apocalypse Now was written by John Milius. And if you're wondering, how could someone who wrote this not get work? He did get work, just not that frequently. Like at one point, he tried to work on Deadwood, which I have to confess, I'm a little disappointed in David Milch not giving him work. But then again, he was like, "You wrote Apocalypse Now. I can't see you in the writer's room. It'd probably be too out there." And the funny thing was, when Milch found out why Milius wanted to be involved in Deadwood, he was like, "I'll help you." Because at the time, his son was trying to go to law school, and Milch was like, "I'll pay for it. Fuck it." And funny enough, later when Milius did Rome, because he did get to work on that, he paid Milch back, and Milch was like, "Can you believe this motherfucker? He's the first person to ever pay me back." Like, so you want about John Milius? I consider him an officer and a gentleman. He was like the Steve Ditko of movies, and by that I mean the left look at these two and go, "This guy's fucking crazy." Like Steve Ditko one time told O'Neill that he thought the hippies should be shot. I'm like, nah, I second that. Fuck them. Well, the crazy ones anyway. But yeah, this documentary is just about John Milius and his career, and he's still alive technically, but he had a stroke while he was in the process of trying to get a Genghis Khan movie made. Like he wrote a script for Genghis Khan, and Genghis Khan of himself is a fascinating. Like he could be considered evil. I don't care. He is a fascinating individual. Like this guy had a friend. They grew up. They came up together, and they ended up killing one of the other. Like that's a tragedy in of itself. Like he killed his own friend. Really sad, but and based on the script and how Milius does things, like think Conan but Genghis Khan. That's what the script sounded like. And while he was in the midst of rewriting the script, he had a stroke. He was in a coma for a while. He came out of it, but he lost his ability to talk because he used to be a really very articulate talker. He lost that, and that's unfortunate. And he is getting back to it. I think he was interviewed one time about Star Wars and stuff. And I felt like he didn't like the prequels, to which Milius, I have to say, "You let me down, bro. You let me down." But oh well. He had a lot of cool script ideas. Like he had one for a Western back when Clint Eastwood still did Westerns. Like it was earmarked for Eastwood, weirdly enough, but they never did it. It was about a Texas Ranger, I believe. Like this guy was weird. He did he did one movie about a guy who killed Native Americans and ate their organs, and that was based on a true story, apparently. Like, interesting guy. If you have time to kill and you just want to hear about an interesting guy in Hollywood that Hollywood would never have the balls to back up today, Milius is the documentary name. It's on YouTube. If you can't find it there, yes, I'm going to encourage you, sail the seventh seas. I don't care if that gets me in trouble. John Milius, an officer, a gentleman, a underrated man. It is a shame more people don't know about him because he was fucking awesome. And I say this as a guy who's watched a few of his films, not all of them, a few of them, but the dialogue is awesome. Like, if you've ever wondered where the line, "Do I feel lucky," comes from in Dirty Harry, that's where. It wasn't, apparently that wasn't in the script originally. He entered that. Because, as Clint Eastwood said, he loved the grandioseness of things. And I'm not going to lie, after I found out about this documentary, I was basically inspired to try to my hand at scripts myself. So, yeah, John Milius. When he dies, it's a bit like when George Lucas dies. The world is going to be a sadder place. When Spielberg dies, he'll be sad for 10 seconds. They'll be like, fuck it. We've lost better people. Anyway, that's the video. Check out the documentary. It was on Netflix. I think it's not on there anymore, or it might have been taken off, or I don't know if it's been put back on, but it has, like, interviews with George Lucas. Kathleen Kennedy, of all people, is in it. Apparently she defended Milius at one point. But it has them, Spielberg, Oliver Stone, Powers Booth, the guy who played Ed Bundy in Married with Children. Who else? Francis Ford Coppola is being interviewed. Like lots of faces you might recognize are interviewed in this documentary. Watch it, by crumb. Have a nice day, and remember the game was rigged from the start. Goodbye.